thinking earlier in the afternoon when someone asked me what I was going to speak about. I thought, I really don't know if I have something relevant to this room. But let me just start with why I'm here. First of all, I think people from this region, the UAE region, are fantastic hosts. Each time I've come, I've had a great time. So that was one reason to be attracted to come back here. In the last month, I think I've come here twice, and I haven't really come much before. Last month because Danny dragged me to Dubai, and I had a great time with the event that he put together. And now with Pankaj and Dave asking me to come. Also, some of the thoughts that triggered earlier this year in May, we did our third fundraise. One of the key investors that joined us was ADIC, the Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund, and before that we had only fundraised in North America. We're an India-focused fund, I'll get to that in a minute, but I think a lot of things are changing globally. The world is getting smaller, the way we learn, collaborate with each other is changing. So I think it's no longer simply about being insular, but learning from what is happening in various regions. So I thought I learned something, maybe I'll share something. I don't know much about the MENA region from investing or opportunities, so all I can do here for you is to share our experiences in India, and hopefully there is a thing or two that you can take away from that that's relevant, like I've taken away from each of the presentations here today. Now the clicker, how does it work? Okay. No. How does this work? Oh yeah, I got it. Oh, I see. Okay, got it. So I should have done some training before coming on stage, but simply one slide on us so you have a context where I'm coming from. We have been in India for about a decade, focused purely on being an early stage tech fund. We are 650 million investing in India. We have about 50 plus active portfolio companies, which sounds like a lot of companies, but not considering we've been investing in it for 10 years. And point is, we like being deeply engaged in the companies that we invest in. We like teams that have entrepreneurial experience, tech experience, operating experience, empathetic to entrepreneurs. And we have done some nice investments that has made our LPs happy, and hence we have been able to continue our jobs investing in India, which is what I wanted to do in going back to India in 2006. I spent a couple of decades in the Valley, engineer by background, and then in 2006 we saw a unique opportunity to do structured investing into early stage tech. Seems like the timing was right, and it has kind of worked out. I really think, having lived in India now for a year, my enthusiasm, my commitment to what is going on in India has been deepened, and we are in a great place now. Mobile, everything mobile, happening at a very, very rapid pace in India. There is a population advantage, is how they put it today. I think if you talked about it just a decade ago, population was a problem, and now in India, I think this is sounds exciting. Number of internet users, obviously staggering numbers. Next to US, China, India is the third highest growing country from internet use. GDP seems to be doing okay. Number of smartphone users rising, and that has actually significantly affected a lot of things. If we look at e-commerce and internet services, that has really taken off in the country in the last 3 years, exponential numbers. I think it comes from how smartphones are being used at all levels of the society. Today, you could get a Micromax smartphone for less than $50, and that means it's available to everyone. You could order your milk on the smartphone, and the guy at the other end who didn't have a phone to begin with just 10 years ago can deliver that milk to your house. So lots of business models changing because of how it's going on the smartphone, and I think we have about 24 billion in digital spend, which is nice considering it was like zero about 5 years back or so. But the part of the story that's even more exciting is, I think by 2020, if you will, that number is likely to go up 5 to 10 times. And I'll be surprised if this isn't at least 100 billion, and who knows, with some other catalyst, it could alter in even faster pace. So if you think 20 years out or even 10 years out, India is a country that is important to get to know. And a few things about the young startup ecosystem that has been helpful. Again, a year back, it was difficult to find, it wasn't difficult to find entrepreneurs, but it was difficult to, as these companies grow, it was difficult to find people, leaders that come together to help work with the company and so on and so forth. But what has happened is, just in the last couple of years, senior partners from major consulting firms, and I picked that because they're paid a lot, and for them to leave a consulting job, partner at McKinsey or whatever, and come in and say, I'll run your marketing, I'll run your ops, I'll run your customer service, all of which you need as these companies grow, has happened. I mean, I think startups have been the largest drain of resources from senior resources from these established companies. You go to your campus. I was at the IIT Mumbai campus. You just ask, raise of hands, how many of you want to work in a startup? That's 90% of the kids. They want to graduate. They want to work in a startup. They don't want to work in an established company. They're smart. They know that they're not going to get paid the same. It's going to be a lot of hard work. Don't know what the ESOPs are going to mean, but they want to work in a startup. And there's a word, ghar wapsi. Ghar means home, wapsi means returning, so people returning home, that's what it means. And you, most of you probably know that India had this word, brain drain, which means young, smart Indians wanted to leave India, go work somewhere else, US, Canada, sometimes Europe, but mostly US. And, you know, Silicon Valley certainly has lots of Indians that have done extremely well, and it's interesting to think that two great companies, Microsoft and Google, have Indian CEOs now. But what is happening is a lot of the talent wants to come back home, and that has also changed the startup ecosystem. And I think starting 2004-05, there has been an accelerated pace of people who have been successful globally coming back to India, and that has also helped the startup ecosystem. So what has increased the risk appetite for Indian youth, apart from culturally it's okay to fail now, and you know, anecdotally, it used to be that the joke that would be making in the Indian circles is, if you're in a startup, you can't really get married because your future father-in-law is not, I mean, he does his due diligence, is not going to believe that you have a real job, right? But now, and I saw a joke on the internet the other day that said, the moment you say you're in a startup, they don't ask you any more questions in the typical future father-in-law interview or something like that. But anyway, apart from that, it's okay to work in a startup. The VC ecosystem has matured. There has been $2 billion just last year in VCPE investing. This doesn't include the growth capital that has flown in, since growth capital goes disproportionately to few companies. If I include growth capital, I think that's like $11 billion that's gone into India. The combined valuation of these top companies has been 39 billion in the last 5 years. The gestation period for companies to succeed or fail has been very quick. I actually think it's quicker than 18 months right now to get to your next round, or you don't have a company. So, you know, fail fast or grow, right? And that's happening a lot. And there's a number of startups. I mean, just last year alone, I think number of startups in the tech space, I'm talking about these numbers all in the tech space, right? India ranks third now in the global startup ecosystem. A lot of this is B2C, but B2B is increasing. I think over the next decade, if I see, a lot more B2B will happen from a proportion, but a lot of this has been B2C, smartphones in people's hands, really fragmented market, supply demand, you know, service very, very poor. All of the reasons why B2C has succeeded. And 90% of the startups are in top 6 cities, really mostly in Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai. So if you want to come to India, do a circuit. If you hit those 3 cities, that's fine. If you can't do 3 cities, just come to Bangalore. I'm there. Karthi is there, and we are happy to host you. 25 plus VC and growth firms. So there's enough competition for entrepreneurs to go at least get 2-3 term sheets if their company is that interesting. The other thing that has really changed is the angel ecosystem. And this is somewhat certified angels, so to speak, meaning people who have some experience investing. Otherwise, I think the angel ecosystem has been very, very vibrant in the Indian ecosystem over the last 3-4 years, I would say. And last year alone, about 400-500 companies have gotten funded. So on and so forth, right? So lots of great numbers that are helping the ecosystem. As they say, it's a snowball effect. One success leads to more, and more success leads to more. So it's a cascading impact, like a domino effect. So starting from 2006 when I went, there were no VC firms and really not many startups to today. It really is an exciting place. And global investors are betting on India. This part, let me just take a minute, because while the angel and the VC ecosystem has grown in India, the growth capital still is coming from outside of India. And I share this because this may be true for the MENA region also perhaps, because to create these large companies, there is a fund flow that's required, and how you cultivate that makes all the difference to whether your companies can succeed or not. And most of these firms don't have local presence. More than 8 billion invested, and it's really a good time to be investing in India. So what has happened with this? Many billion-dollar companies have emerged. Here are some just ranked by their valuation. Obviously, no surprise, some of the hot sectors are very similar anywhere in the world. But a lot of the large valuation tickets that have happened have come from broadly internet services. And that will probably continue. However, I think there are other emerging sectors that are coming up, whether that's in fintech. Not any large companies have happened yet, but with the growth that has happened into the platforms, the support infrastructure and the support solutions, I think those are all emerging. And number of companies that are rising up, bubbling up, that could be the next companies you get to watch or hear about. I haven't captured what each of these companies do, but most of them fit in one way or the other into the digital economy. By the way, this is not meant to be comprehensive. These are just companies I know, and not necessarily all the companies we invested in. Wish that were true, but not quite. Then the trends in Indian startup ecosystem, just for those of you who don't know India, haven't really spent time understanding the investment dynamics in India. Bangalore leads, like I said, and with the consumer internet is the most funded of the 11 billion, probably 7+ billion has gone into consumer internet. Interestingly, all the things that were disadvantages for digital economy to take off, because our roads are not that great. How many of you actually have been to India, by the way, from here? Yeah, so you already know, a lot about what the roads are like and the infrastructure is like, and you wonder how, these packages ever get anywhere and how people travel and so forth. I wonder that myself many times. But COD, which means cash on delivery. So you order a product and somebody brings it to your house and collects cash. Now, the problem is, if you're not local in your investment thinking, like I'm not local to MENA, so I wouldn't be investing here unless I had a local partner or I spent a lot of time investing or spending here. And likewise, this is true of every local market. So if you came from sort of the Silicon Valley culture, which I did when I first went to India, and I had to unlearn everything I knew, because in India, credit cards, minimal, and road infrastructure, minimal. So how do you do e-commerce, right? So most of the orders are on what we call cash on delivery. So you order the product, somebody brings the product to you, to your home or office or whatever, and you pay for it. If you think about it, this would be nearly impossible. Nobody is home in a Western culture to be able to pay, but that's not true in Indian culture. There's somebody usually at home. So that's a very small insight maybe, but this model that works so well in India couldn't easily work other places. I think we have been talking about female founders earlier, so let me do the plug. There is not as many as I would like, but it's not so bad. I think at least a tenth of the founders are female, and I liked that both Emil and Cameron talked about their families. So I have two smart young daughters, and they're not so young, 22 and 17, but what I want for them is to be secular global citizens with a sense of deep self-respect and belief that they can go do whatever they want to do. That's how I look at my female founders. I think we have about 4 or 5 in Kalari of 50 investments, so about that ratio, 10%. Just quickly, learnings from funding something like Snapdeal, which we led the first round investment in 6 years. They've grown to be a large number 1 marketplace. They have significant scale. So scale has become very possible in India. And some of our lessons out of this is really not to underestimate the power of a platform. So once they got enough number of sellers on the platform and worked out some of the scale factors, how do we deliver, how do we manage warehouses for other people, they put the operational pieces in place, I think their expansion has been tremendous. And I think this kind of a potential exists in every underserved market, which perhaps this region is, and other regions. Lots of challenges, though, in creating companies in India. It's not easy to do business, access to talent, and the market dynamics from exit, contracts, enforcement are far from what you would expect from Silicon Valley. And being on boards of startups are really not that easy. I have probably gone to a police station twice because a supplier of one company or the other filed a case against us because we are easy to reach versus the startup CEOs. And, and if you are issued an FIR, you have to show up at the police station. So who would have thought investing as a venture capitalist, you have to go to a police station. But, so there are actual risks to what a board member is subjected to in India. So there are deep personal liability risks. So don't go on Indian boards very easily without fully doing diligence that you're willing to sign up for the risks. And we are, of course, not independent board members, but bringing independent board members is really difficult because there are legal restrictions to how much you can pay them, which is not a lot. And yet there is deep personal liability, and D&O doesn't really work in the country. So lastly, why should you invest in India? I don't know that any of you are saying I want to invest in India, but in case you consider investing in India, I think it's going to be a huge market, the middle class, and so it's a domestic market, largely a domestic market, strong entrepreneurial ecosystem, and India has now proven that it can generate returns, which is at the root of this virtuous cycle of investing. That's it. I hope we get to collaborate, share knowledge and resources, and hopefully when you come to India, you'll give us a shout. Thank you.